Welcome everyone to the Journey to Great webinar series powered by Nationwide. Today we will be talking about leading through change, strategies to uphold a thriving workplace culture, a conversation with Great Place to Work and leaders at Plante Moran. Before we get started, let me share some housekeeping rules. Everyone is on mute and you should only hear panelists. The last 15 minutes of today's webinar, we will go over your questions. So please submit them at any time using the question panel in the top right of your screen. You will see a conversation icon with a question mark. At Great Place to Work, we love feedback. Once the webinar ends, we invite you to answer the 4-question survey that will pop on your screen. We want to hear from you and your experience. The webinar is being recorded. You will receive an email with a link to watch the webinar and share with friends and colleagues afterwards. Great Place to Work is recognized by SHRM Professional Credits. For those who attend live and fill the survey, you will receive a credit on our follow-up email. Now let's get started. Welcome everyone. I'm Ceci Riva Mosquera, Demand Generation Director at Great Place to Work US. I've been with Great Place to Work for more than 16 years, not only because this is a great place to work, but most importantly because I believe in the work that we do and the positive impact that we have on people, organizations, and the environment. I'm based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'm very excited to host this conversation. Today, I'm joined by great professionals. And let's start with a friend and colleague of mine. As an intensive one-on-one culture coaching sessions, he and his team use Great Place to Work surveys, platform, and pricing to help companies identify their culture's unique strengths and areas of opportunity. In fact, he's been working with Plante Moran for the past 3 years, so maybe some of you today have been lucky to have met him already. He's also a member of the People Posse, a committee we have at Great Place to Work that supports the people and purpose team building of our internal great culture. Please help me welcome Elliot Bush, Senior Manager for the Culture Coaching Team at Great Place to Work, and my colleague and friend. Thank you so much, Elliot, for leading today's conversation. And sorry for that. We also have the honor to have not one, but 2 incredible managing partners from Plante Moran, and you'll hear a little bit more on why too. As managing partner of Plante Moran, Jim Probe leads one of the nation's largest public accounting and business advisory firms, helping to expand Plante Moran's capabilities by increasing service offerings, investing in top talent, and helping them compete in a digital world. Jim has more than 35 years of public accounting experience, serving clients primarily in the manufacturing and higher education industries. His specific experience includes audit services, business and personal tax consulting, as well as serving as an advisory board member to several clients. Through his career, he's held a number of leadership positions, including 13 years as group managing partner, where he focused on the firm's industry practices, client service, growth, people development, and risk management. Jim has spent his entire 40-year career at Plante Moran and works out of the firm's Southfield, Michigan office. On July 1st, 2024, Jason Drake will become Plante Moran's managing partner, succeeding Jim Probe, who's held the role for the past 7 years. As managing partner, Jason will lead one of the nation's largest public accounting and business advisory firms, helping expand Plante Moran's scope, reach, and capabilities by increasing the service offerings, investing in top talent, offering unparalleled client service, and leveraging their technical expertise to remain competitive in a changing digital world. Currently, Jason is the group managing partner of offices for Chicagoland, Ohio, and the firm's international locations, helping to guide and connect the leadership throughout the firm. Jason started his career with Plante Moran nearly 25 years ago and works out of the firm's Auburn Hills, Michigan office. Change is never easy. Whether your organization is scaling up, facing economic pressures, or integrating new team members, the challenge of change can hinder even the best efforts to maintain a positive employee experience. In today's sessions, Plante Moran's experience will provide real-world examples of how to navigate leadership transition effectively. You'll learn the specific actions the company took to build trust, communicate openly, and support employee well-being. Let's get started.
Thank you so much, Ceci. So as Ceci just mentioned, one of the things that we see in our experience working with lots of companies is that leadership changes are a really tough time for a lot of company cultures. So can you elaborate a little bit on how your strong company culture benefited you during this transition?
Yeah, Elliot, let me start out. And so first of all, thank you, Great Place to Work, for allowing us to tell our story today. It's really exciting for us because this year we celebrated our 100-year anniversary, which we're really proud of. And I haven't been here for all 100 years, but Seth, like she mentioned earlier, I've been here for 40 of them. So I've seen a lot of change. And I'm often asked to speak about culture, to whether it's different professional service firms or just different organizations, because Plante Moran's known for its wonderful culture. And what I always have to remind people is that, like, every organization has a culture, but if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't invest in it daily, you might end up with a culture that you don't want. And so at Plante Moran, we invest heavily in our culture, just on a day-to-day basis. And if you ask staff to describe our culture, most of them would describe it. You'd hear these words. They say, we care. We care about our clients. We care about our communities. We care about each other. Our people also tell us that culture is the number one reason that they join our firm. And that if we change the culture, it's the number one reason they would leave the firm. So it can't be just words on paper, and it's not for us. We love our culture day in and day out. If you think about change, culture can really help you with implementing whatever change you're trying to put in place. Could be a new technology tool, could be a new process, could even be a change in leadership. But as it relates to leadership change, it's really important because if that transition's not done well, it can derail the whole succession plan, and it can just be disruptive to the entire organization. And for us at Plante Moran, like, leadership change at the managing partner level, it doesn't happen very often. So Jason will be the 8th managing partner in the 100-year history of our firm. We don't do this very often, but we really have a very well-defined and robust process. And for me and for Jason, we were both prepared for these roles in terms of the transition because of the process. We knew what the process was, and this process has been in place at our firm for decades. So let me get to your original question. How does a strong culture help with transition? First of all, people, if they understand the culture, if they trust in the culture, if the organization, if your leaders, if they're committed to the culture, and again, that means living it day in, day out, then it's something that staff learn that they can count on. And they trust the leadership to maintain the culture because they've seen it done before. And that way they know that the firm's day-to-day operations are going to continue without disruption. And if you do it right, the transition, it really can bring stability. And the rest of the firm can just, for us, focus on serving clients, taking care of staff, and growing the firm. So culture is very much a huge part of our transition plan and just our leadership changeover. And it's been, again, this process we've had in place for decades.
You kind of touched on it a little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you, as a leader, and other leaders within the organization, leverage your values and mission statement to sort of keep building that culture and keep building that consistency for people?
Yeah, sounds good, Elliot. I'll take that question. Really, I mean, we look at it as strong values and principles are the foundation that a great culture is built upon. But they need to be more than just words on a page. Leaders need to show these actions and values and principles in action. Strong cultures come from values and behaviors from the top down. It's really about building that we belong, the collective team, the we, and how we treat one another. For us, it's treating people with care and respect, following the golden rule, really treating people how they'd like to be treated. It's, the team atmosphere, the camaraderie that's enjoyed by the, team who generally enjoy doing what they do and who they do it with. For us, it really comes down to doing the right thing for the right reason. Over the past 4 years, we've seen this in action because there's been so much change. And really being guided by our core values and principles helped us get through the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic even stronger than before. For me, during the pandemic, Jim asked me to join his management team. And for me, it was a re-recruiting event, joining the management team. Not because I was asked to join the management team, but really because I could see a lot of the decisions made day in and day out. The thoughtfulness that goes into every decision the firm makes, really seeing Jim's ability to hear different thoughts, his kind of balance of head and heart, and always circling back to the firm's values and principles when decisions were being made. So for me, it was a re-recruiting event because I saw how these decisions are made. And when we navigate as a firm through change, and we're always going to change and have continuous change, but really what I'd learned over this past 4 years, really working closely with Jim, is if we live our core principles and values day in and day out, together we can accomplish any change. So really, it was motivating for me, and I've seen it from day one when I was at the firm and joining the overall leadership to the team. I saw it really in action as well when these decisions are being made.
Thank you. I like how it kind of connected to the idea of like every organization, the mission and values are really what's differentiating you from others. Um, can you speak a little bit about what we see in our research when we talk about what makes a leader effective, right? What do we actually mean by that specifically? One of the key things that we find is leaders really need to show a sincere interest in their people, not just as employees, but really as people. And that's something that I've seen in your own an area where you really outperform other organizations in terms of, do people feel like the specific framing as management shows a sincere interest in me as a person? What advice would you give to leaders, both of you, who are looking to build stronger personal connections with their staff?
I think, starting off, it's really investing in the team. So at Plante Moran, when people start with the firm, they're assigned a team partner. And that team partner sticks with them throughout their career. Depending on what service line they're in, what office they're in, et cetera. But we feel like, this team partner system is really our secret sauce on staff development and retention, and really getting that true appreciation and buy-in from the staff. All staff, again, are assigned that team partner. That team partner is responsible for career coaching, planning, performance evaluations, and it really helps build staff loyalty and morale from day one. One of my team partners during my career, an individual named Dan Desher. Dan, every time we would have a career planning session or meet, Dan would say to me, "Jason, this is your ship. You're the captain of your ship. You're guiding the direction of your ship. I'm your first mate, and I'm here to help you along the way." And that for me, I always felt Dan had my best interests at heart. And really, investing in your team, being there for your team, listening to your team, really gets that buy-in and that long-term loyalty, so that when they do have issues, they're going to talk to you first before they go out and do anything.
Dan was a great team partner, wasn't he, Jason? He really was. And one of the other things that's really important, and it's a concept that our previous HR director, Bill Boofy was his name, came up with, was a concept of re-recruiting. Because everybody knows about recruiting, right? In terms of bringing people into an organization. But Bill really had this philosophy of people need to be re-recruited because you'll have ups and downs over your career. And it's at those down times that you need to be re-recruited. And so he always encouraged us, and we still have this in place today. Think about like what would you do if that team member of yours walked into your office and said, "I'm leaving the firm." You'd re-recruit them. You'd surround them with people that would help them see the vision of what they can become. You'd let them see how they can develop. You'd create a plan for them. You'd try and entrench them back into the firm. And so Bill's point was always, why wait until they walk into your office? We should be doing that on a day-to-day basis with our team in terms of getting to know them, what they like, what they don't like. How do we entrench them into the firm? How do we let them know what they're doing well? How do we let them know where we need to challenge them to do better? And so re-recruiting is a huge piece of what our team partners are expected to do.
Yeah, Jim, I agree. I mean, I like some of the things you said. Really a big part of it's helping show the vision, show their opportunities, and giving them the feedback. We have the concept candor as kindness. We really believe that it's essential for individuals' growth and providing candid, in the moment feedback, fostering a culture of openness and continuous improvement really helps people grow. We see this even as partners. We're still getting the feedback. So I expect after this call is over, Jim's going to call me up. Hey, you could have done this a little bit better. And it's just part of our culture. It's what we expect. One of the past managing partners that I've worked with quite a bit, Gordon Crater, we would go out and do proposals for clients. And the first thing he would ask when we were done was, hey, do you have any feedback for me? And you give him the feedback, and he always had some for you too. But it was good as how he approached the feedback. It wasn't in a contentious way. It was really, how can we all improve and strive to get better?
That's great. I love it. Gordon has done that with me several times, Jason, believe me. And you talked about the vision and helping staff see the vision. It's so important, and understanding the why, like why we do what we do. I'll share a story with you. I was with it was one of our wealth management staff, and I asked them. I said, "So tell me what you do." And they said, "Well, I help clients with their investments. I help them with their tax projections. I help them, keep their financial stuff in order." And I said, that's not what you do." And I said, "Well, wait, no, that is what you do, but that's not what you really do. Because what you really do is you give people peace of mind. What you really do is you help families out. What you really do is help them. That's what you're doing. It's way beyond the investing piece. It's way beyond the tax advice that you give." And so it's helping people understand that why. And it's something that we talk about a lot at the firm. Because again, I think it lets people see the bigger picture, the importance of what they're doing. Another big concept for us is being a servant leader, and people recognizing that your job is to help others. And I'll share another story. I was at lunch, was with the CEO of another professional service firm, and we were talking about the importance of servant leadership. And I was drawing out our org structure on a napkin. And as I was drawing that, I showed them, I had my position, I'm at the bottom of the napkin. And they commented to me, they said, "Oh, well, you must have that upside down." I said, "No, it's not upside down. I'm at the bottom here because my job is to take care of the partners and the staff, so they in turn can take care of the clients. I'm here to serve others of the firm." And so servant leadership is a huge part of the way the firm operates. And for our partners, they embrace the same thing. They feel the same way. Their challenge is to be the best mentors, the best teachers, the best developers of our staff, so that we can leave the firm better off than when we found it. So it's stewardship. And really, to be a great mentor, you have to have great relationships with your staff. And so it's really trying to tie all that together in this team partnership. And it works really well for us.
Great point, Jim. Whenever I meet with new partner candidates, our principals, one of the questions I always ask them is like, how many new partners do they want to make in their career? And they give me a number, and I'm like, how are you going to do it? And it's really about investing in them and helping them see the future and making it a great opportunity and growth for them so that we can continue growing the firm.
Thank you so much. I talk a lot about leaders need to set an example from the top if they want to create a culture. I'll have to start thinking about leaders need to set an example. So one of our surveys, a similar statement that Plante Moran is performing really well on, that we see a lot of organizations struggle with, particularly in your industry, is work-life balance. So as you're going through leadership change and as people are going through uncertainty in their own career, how do you make sure you keep prioritizing work-life balance, both just in general, but particularly during leadership changes?
Yeah, Elliot, I mean, again, I think a lot of these concepts we do during leadership changes, but we do continuous. Like staff well-being is always a focus for us. And a lot of our philosophies really came from one of our founders, Frank Moran, who was a philosophy major. And one of his concepts, his sayings, was the whole person comes to work. And so this philosophy is very important to us at our firm, and that people should have balance. Balance is one of the centers of our founding principles. It's really the balance between work and family, between work and play, between professional accomplishments and personal pursuits, that balance of head and heart, and, between individual freedom and the freedom of the team. Frank had a concept when he would talk about balance, he would talk about a tightrope. So if you imagine a tightrope, people's balance on a tightrope is dependent on the person. There's no one size fits all. And really, as you walk along that tightrope, that balance changes at different points and times in your lives, and when different challenges, when you have life events, when you get married, when you have children, when you have elderly parents, like your balance is always changing. So we have to work together as a team to help our team members and our partners find the right balance for them. So it's ingrained in our overall DNA as a firm. I talked earlier about one of my team partners, and the same team partner, he was on me for a few years to say, hey, Jason, you need to take more vacation time. You need to take more vacation time. And then, we'd have that conversation year over year. So one day I get home from work and my wife, Jessica, says, hey, Dan called me. I'm like, Dan called you? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, Dan called you. He said, Dan said, you're not taking enough vacation time. So what would be good for you and the family? And at the time, my wife was a teacher, and it was she said, I'd love to go on spring break with the family. And I said, Jessica, that's my busiest time of the year. It's, first week of April, busy season. And she's like, I know. She's like, Dan told me not to worry about it. He'll take care of it. And Dan did. I mean, in my results measures for that year, Dan put a bonus component that I would have to take that week of vacation. And if I didn't, it would affect my bonus. And so really, Dan truly understood that the whole person comes to work. He knew how to create that stickiness. He knew how to create loyalty and get family buy-in. And so when I think about, I never knew Frank Moran. I think about Dan Desher as my Frank Moran. In those stories, and Dan's one of Dan's mentors was Frank Moran, and you hear those stories, and to me, it made a huge impact on me. It made a huge impact on my career, and it made a huge impact on my family. So, as leaders, we need to think about those types of things as leaders and working with our team to really understand that a whole person comes to work and helping them find their balance. As a firm,
that's a great example, Jason, of living our culture. It really is. That's a wonderful example of that.
Yeah, I still think about Dan all the time, and that's just one of many stories with Dan. And, we share those stories with our partners and our teams just so they understand, being intentional, taking that 5 minutes to make that phone call, and what a huge impact that can have. Some of the other ways we as a firm, help people find their balance is we do have flexible time off. So our FTO policy allows staff to take time whenever they need it, not having to worry about their PTO bank or availability. We all have goals that we need to accomplish, but, if someone needs to take a day off or they're getting married, have life events, and need to take more time off than normal, we have that flexibility as well. We have alternative work arrangements that many staff use to tailor their work schedules based on their circumstances. And some of that can include telecommuting. Some of it can be compressed work schedules. Some of it can be part-time schedules. And other things to help people find their balance. One of the things that we introduced a couple years ago is called the Balance Fund. This one was one of my favorites just because it allows people to get reimbursed up to an annual dollar amount for 50% of their expenses that can contribute to helping them find their balance. So, a lot of folks post on our internal site about what they're using their balance fund for, and it's always neat hearing some of the stories. A lot of people are taking vacations with family. Maybe they're buying a dog. It's really what helps them find their balance, and that's why we get so excited about it.
Jason, I love when hearing that story about when Dan called you, and again, it's putting our culture in our day-to-day action. And I can remember being a young staff person. I think I was with the firm I was probably a year. And my team partner, his name was Bill Herman. And now I'm going way back here because this is in the middle of the 80s, right? Before we had some of the technology tools we have today. And Bill had one of those big fold-out calendars that you could write, your appointments in. And we were scheduling something, I don't remember what it was. But I remember noticing on his calendar, some of the things that he had put on there were in pencil and other things were in pen. And I asked him, I said, what's up with that? What's the deal with that? Why are some in pen, some in pencil? And what he explained to me, he says, well, see the ones in pen? These are all events with my family. These are my kids' events. I'm not going to change those. I'm going to do whatever I can to protect that time. So I put those in pen. See all these in pencil? These are all work related. These things can change if they need to. Doesn't mean they will change, but if I have to, I can erase them and change those. But the ones in pen, I'm not going to change those. So that was something I learned as a one-year staff person. And again, it's just constantly reinforced throughout my career. When I was on Gordon Crater's leadership team, his management team, so Gordon was one of our former managing partners. I can remember, and now my kids they're in high school at this time. And we'd be in meetings discussing, something that was important to the firm. And Gordon would stop the meeting. And he'd say, Jim, doesn't Mike or Brian, don't they have something today? You told me they had an event today, and they had some sporting event. And high school sporting events start at 3:00, something like that. He'd say, you got to go. I'd say, no, let's finish this. I'll be fine. It's okay. He'd say, no, we're not going to continue the discussion. Like, you need to go. You need to get to those events. My kids still talk about that today. Like, Dad, how did you get to so many of my events? It's because of this principle of balance, and really what I learned throughout my career, writing those things in pen, really trying to stay true to them and hold them. It sets great example for our people, and it's the right thing to do in terms of that balance, as Jason had talked about. So it's a very important concept for us.
Yeah, I agree, Jim. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't think we always get it perfect. And a lot of times it's because it's up us as individuals to find that balance as well. So we have coaches, we have mentors, we have team partners. And I always tell my team, like, okay, I can help you so much, but you have to take some initiative in this as well. I mean, it was just recently, I think Jim and I were in New York for a board meeting a couple weeks ago. And my daughter had something going on at the school. And Jim was like, are you going to be back in time? And so, he was like, change your flight, take the earlier flight 2 hours earlier so that I can make it. So it's one of those things where it's always a constant struggle. But, the thing that, us as leaders, we have to check in with other leaders as well. I mean, it's not just our team members, but for us as a firm, we need to check in with our partners to help make sure they're finding that balance as well.
I love the through line through all of your answers is there are great leaders along the step of all of these journeys, and they're consistently great, which I love to see. Speaking of great leaders, when you're transitioning leaders just generally within the organization, can you walk us through a little bit more about the process of how you actually plan a leadership transition?
Yeah, let me walk you through the process. But Before I get to the process, I'm going to share another story with you because I think it'll help bring to life the importance of this process. So, and again, this goes back a little ways, but at the time uh, I had just been announced as a new leader of one of our offices, our Ann Arbor office. And again, Bill Herman, my team partner, and eventually Bill became the managing partner of the firm. On the first day on the job is the new office managing partner. Bill walks into my office and he says, "So, who's going to take your job next? Who's going to be the next office managing partner?" And then he said, "It's not just who are the multiple candidates that you're going to create to be the next office managing partner?" So here it is, day one. And I told him, I said, "Bill, I'm not even sure I understand the responsibilities of the job yet." He says, "I'll tell you what, you got 90 days to figure it out and then get back to me with who you think would be good candidates." That's how much emphasis we put on leadership transition and building your successor. And we do that with all of our leadership roles throughout the firm, actually, all of the roles throughout the firm. People are expected to create the next person who's going to take their job. And so, as it relates to this transition that Jason and I are going through, so for the managing partner, it really starts, well, actually, in advance of you becoming the managing partner, but for certain, day one, when you become the managing partner. So even if your transition's 8 years out, it starts day one in terms of thinking about who can I develop to eventually become my successors. And the key there is plural. Our goal is to create multiple candidates for these roles because you never know what's going to happen. Somebody might have a different opportunity within the firm that maybe is better, highest, and best use for them. Somebody else might say, I'm not really interested in taking on the role now that I understand it better. So you've got to create multiple people to potentially take your role. So it starts out well in advance of any change. But once you've identified those potential successors, then the focus really becomes on making sure that they're giving the experiential learning that they need, the training that they need. So involving them in different things that are going on in the firm so that they can experience it. Some of it also is pushing people out of their comfort zone. I mean, we're a firm believer, and we always say people are capable of much more than they think they are. I'm living proof of it. I never thought I'd be the managing partner of Plante Moran. I kept getting experiences. I kept getting pushed out of my comfort zone. I kept trying new things. And eventually that's what it led to. So it's making sure that you're challenging folks. As it relates to the managing partner role, again, we have a really well-defined process. And let me give you just kind of an overview of it. It really starts with our nominating committee. So we have a nominating committee, which consists of 12 partners who are elected by the partnership, plus a managing partner. That committee really begins the process 18 months out before the actual change would take place. And what we do is this. It starts with a survey of all the partners to get their input on the skills desired, who they think would be a good fit, those types of things. Then we follow up with practice leaders. And so there's roughly 100 plus, maybe it's probably about a third of the partnership that we follow up with to have one-on-one conversations with to make sure we understand the skills that they think the next managing partner needs, what's going on in their particular industry, service group, geography. Those surveys and those discussions really kind of help narrow it down to a handful of candidates who then go through an assessment with our talent and organizational development team. And really that assessment helps evaluate your strengths. It identifies the skills that you have to make sure that you're a good fit for the role. Then those candidates are interviewed by the nominating committee. What happens throughout this process is one candidate really emerges as the best fit for the managing partner role. And then the other candidates who could have been taking the role, they really rally around that candidate. And the reason that happens is because these folks are used to working together. They're in leadership roles already within the firm. They know each other well. And as they see one person start to emerge out of it, they really rally behind that candidate. And so the importance of this and the importance of our committee and structure in this process is this. So it's, some people might say, boy, that's a really lengthy process. That sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. But the benefits are that all the partners are involved in selecting the next leaders. They've all had some input on it, whether it was a survey, whether it was an interview. And so what happens is you don't have hand-picked successors. So the current managing partner can't just say, well, it's going to be so-and-so, because we're going to go through a process to make sure we have the best candidate. As a result, there's no politicking. We don't have that in our firm. We don't have people rallying support for, this person or for themselves or things like that, because it's all done as part of our process within the committee. And again, we avoid kind of this feeling of winners and losers because people rally around the candidate. They're used to working together. They get behind the person, whoever it might be. And so it works really well within our firm. Again, we don't do this very often, but we think we've got a very good process. And really, this process has been in place for decades. And so it's been in place, from the time the firm was, a tenth of the size that it is today. And so it really works well for us. So that's kind of the mechanics of the process.
Thank you.
And I'd say, the nice thing is our partnership really trusts the process. They trust the nominating committee that they're doing the right things for the right reason, and the partners do have a voice in it. So, I feel really good about, our nominating committee process and that whole election process because they're, like to Jim's point, there's no politicking. We all want what's best for the firm, and we have a lot of fantastic leaders. And it's really finding the right person at the right time for the organization and where we're heading.
So I hear a lot of transparency in that process as well, in terms of people having the visibility into understanding, which of course creates more of a sense of fairness because it's fair. You also generally score really well on employees feeling that they're informed about important issues and changes that are going on. Can you speak a little bit more about how you communicated around the change with your people as a whole?
Yeah, so, I think, one of the things that Jim mentioned earlier was just that this, finding the successor. So Bill Herman was one of my mentors as well, who Jim mentioned. And Bill, even every position that I've had, Bill said, Jason, this is not meant to be a life sentence. You need to start investing in your successor or successors from day one in anything you do, because you never know when you're going to be tapped on the shoulder. So I think for our staff, when leadership changes are announced, it's not a huge surprise because they see people that are getting visibility in different leadership opportunities. So, prior to being elected managing partner, I was in the management team. I led our international offices. I led our international practice. I helped open many of our international offices as well. So, they've seen me in different positions. And there's other leaders that they've seen the same thing. So, they see, and it's not a big surprise, when we go through this process, we don't bring anyone in from the outside. So it's not a huge shock to our teams. That being said, we want to make sure that our teams are up to date on the announcement pretty much immediately. We did the election process for the managing partner 8 months ago, so in November. And during the election process, or right when the election process during our partner meeting was approved, we made an announcement to the staff. So during our partner meeting, once that vote was over, we made an announcement to the staff. It's really important for us that staff hear news like this from, directly from leaders, making sure they're not hearing it from other sources. So, we had the internal announcement first, and then the next day we did the external announcement. Really, once we announced the me as the new leader, it was trying to get, more visibility for myself, and really show the team that, I'm taking over, but I'm not making a huge change to the firm, and that we're going to continue doing the great things that we've done before. And a big part of it is because I was involved in kind of the strategic direction of the firm beforehand. So some of the things that we, reached out to our teams is, again, we had that formal announcement to the team that went out once the election was finalized. And then Jim and I did a series of videos after that. He and I together talking about the, current firm, talking about the future firm, we spent most of our time talking about what's not changing more than what is changing. And again, I think it's because we're so committed to our core values and principles that we don't see that there's going to be a ton of change. The other thing that we did is, and our marketing team is very creative, and the idea of the whole person comes to work. So they got my family involved in it as well. So they sent video equipment to my house, and my family had to do a video, just asking, getting to know my family more. And that was something that was published on our internal knowledge share sites, and it had over 3,000 views. So that got tons and tons of positive feedback. And our teams understand that the whole person comes to work and want to understand more about the person and their families as well. The next thing that I did is spend a lot of time in our various offices too. Spending time connecting with people in person, I think, makes a huge difference as well. Just to get to know people a little bit more, even though previously I did spend a lot of time in a lot of our offices. And then really the next step in the process is we have an annual firm conference. So our firm conference is towards the end of June. The effective date of that change is July 1st. So at the end of June, during our firm conference, Jim will kick it off, and then I'll wrap it up. And it's really just trying to make that seamless feel for the transition. So, really 8-month process, and we want to make it seem as seamless as possible. The next step is after, the managing partner announcement was announced, I moved out of my role. Other people moved into new management team roles when I announced my next management team as well. So it was just a huge cascade effect and providing many more opportunities for, different team members throughout the firm, different partners in the firm. So a lot of those announcements were made over a 60-day period after the managing partner announcement was. And it's just really being transparent with staff, showing them this is not a new administration. It's a gradual change. And it's, a really thoughtful, thought out succession planning.
It sounds like you covered pretty much every base I could think of. Is there anything in hindsight that maybe you would have done differently in the transition?
Yeah, that's, I ask myself that a lot. Is there something different we should do, could do? And we always go back and review what we've done. I'd say this, that when we've done that, we haven't come up with major changes to it. There's small things that we'll look to change. Different enhancements. We'll tweak some of the survey questions. Maybe we'll do some things a little bit differently in terms of how we communicate, like Jason said. But there wasn't any significant changes. It's a model that's really worked well for us. So we just haven't felt the need to make huge changes to it. But always interested in hearing from other organizations on how they do it to see if there is something that we can put in place.
So what would you say if you're an organization that is preparing a new leader? Based on your experience, what would be your key takeaways?
Yeah, I'd summarize it like this. So, one, being a good leader is to know when to pass things to the next generation. And so, although I will miss being the managing partner, I also know it's time. And it's time to pass things on to Jason and the next team. They're more than capable, they're more than ready for it. So always keep that in mind as a leader. You've got to know when to pass things to the next group. I'd also say as a leader, the current leader really needs to make sure that they're supporting the incoming leader and their team. In terms of, there may be things you gotta, as you're transitioning, help them think through different things because you as the current leader probably have more history on a topic. So you gotta help them think things through, but don't second guess them. And you always have to be supportive of the direction that they want to go with something. And with that, you gotta make sure that you involve people, the new leader and their team in any major decision that you're making, and particularly the long-term ones. You really do. It shouldn't be my call anymore. It should be the new team. So you got to make sure you understand their point of view and listen to it. And I'd also say that the goal is really to have a seamless and supportive transition. And for us, again, with the process that we go through, how early we started, the communication that we go through, it really gives our staff a feeling of stability. It really does. And it's also, for me, it's fun. It's been an absolute blast. I've worked with Jason for a long time, but transitioning stuff to him has been a lot of fun just to watch how he does things, the energy that he and the new team bring to it. And it's funny, Elliot, we were, Gordon Crater and I, so Gordon was managing partner before me. We were presenting, it was at one of the Great Place to Work conferences. So this would have been, what, 7, 8 years ago. And we were talking about culture, and both of us were presenting, and somebody in the audience asked a question, and they said at the time, Gordon had stepped aside for me to take the role. Again, good leader knows when to get the next group involved. And somebody asked a question, they said, you guys seem to really like each other. Like, I don't see any animosity between this change. And we kind of looked at each other and we laughed and we said, no, there's no animosity. We've worked together for so long. We know each other so well. And it's just time to have a new leader in place. And I feel the same thing with Jason and the new team coming in. There's no animosity with that. It's a smooth transition. It's exciting for the firm, and it's new energy. And so I think that's what, for organizations, that is the goal. And I guess lastly, I would say there always will be awkward moments in a transition where somebody's stepping on somebody's toes. It's not intentional. It's just going to happen where one group might ask me a question, and then if they didn't like that answer, they'll go ask Jason to see if they can get a different answer on something. So you always have kind of those awkward moments or something like that. And if you have great relationships with the incoming leader, it's not a big deal. We actually laugh about it. So it can be a lot of fun also, but you just have to recognize that they're going to be there at times during the transition. But done well, it's really rewarding. It's great to see the energy that the new team brings. So those would be my summary thoughts for you.
Really, and from my perspective as incoming managing partner, I really appreciate the time that Jim spends with me, investing in me, giving me the opportunities, coaching me along the way to make it that seamless transition. It's going to be great, and Jim's promised me even after he retires that I can still call him anytime. I keep joking with him like I'm looking for a driver. So if he's interested, I'd love to have him drive me around, and he can continue growing and mentoring me as well.
I love that. I love that. So Jason, last question before we move to Q&A. From where I'm sitting, it looks like you're standing on the shoulders of giants in terms of your company culture. What are your plans for how you're going to continue that, how you're going to maintain and strengthen your company culture?
To me, I think when we started this off, we started about talking about principles and values are really the foundation of the firm. So to me, it's really continuing to live our we care culture, caring about our clients, caring about our community, caring about each other, and being very intentional about supporting our staff and clients and growing the firm. Growth. We talk a lot about growth, and really, people say that growth can threaten culture. For us, it's really the opposite. Growth provides people with the new opportunities. Giving people new opportunities is really one of the keys to a great culture. I look at Plante Moran, it's built for growth in terms of how we hire, how we develop, how we promote, how we provide future opportunities for generations. This really has this model has gotten us here for 100 years, and I think it's going to help us succeed for 100 more. So to me, it's just continuing to invest in our teams, invest in people, caring about our communities, caring about our culture, and really providing opportunities for others. And it's really, I look at it like there's a quote that I really like by individual Ernie Harwell. Ernie Harwell did play-by-play for the Detroit Tigers. And he always referenced himself to a turtle on a fence post, and I think about me, it's like, I'm a turtle on a fence post. How's a turtle on a how's a turtle get on a fence post? It's because people put them there. So it's really about investing in others. And that's how you get there, is by investing in others. And to me, if we all work together and invest in others, we're going to continue to have much success and growth as a firm. And I'm excited about the future.
Thank you. Both of you, thank you so much. So I think we're going to move into Q&A. Ceci?
Yes. Thank you so much, Jason and Jim. It's been amazing. And we have great questions here. So let me share one, and it could be both of you, because you've talked about your top leaders as well. So someone here asked about how are you able to build buy-in in terms of uh, working around culture. So some advice to someone who wants to build from the bottom up, knowing that it takes great management to decide to build a great culture, but how can the biggest challenge for this person is, and many I believe, how do you activate leadership to be people focused and students of leading people? Great way to ask the question.
How about if I start out, and Jason, you can build off this. Um, One of the sayings we have at the firm is we are relatively jerk-free. And the reason we say relatively is like, well, everybody can have a bad day, so you might be kind of jerky on any given day. But really what that means is that if you don't live the culture, I don't care who you are, I don't care how successful you might be at doing things, if you don't embrace and live the culture, you will not be with us long term. It's just not going to work. We'll be out of alignment. And so it really starts with, I'll say, actions. So you can create all the words you want and documents you want, and I love our documents. Jason had talked about our statement of principles. These sit by my desk all the time. There's another one in my briefcase. There's another one in my home. And when we make decisions, we refer to our statement of principles. And there's been a number of times where we made a decision one day, we reflected on it overnight, and we came back and we said, I don't think we got that right. It's not consistent with our principles. We got to go back and rethink this. We've done that a number of times. And so I really think it just comes back to actions. Your actions have to be in alignment with your culture. And if they're not, then it's not worth the paper that it's written on. It's really not. So.
Jim, I agree. And I think, when we talked earlier, I said, it was a recruiting event for me joining your management team because I saw Jim in action pulling those principles out multiple times. And, again, like Jim said, when we made decisions that when we, sleep on it for a night and we reflect on it and we don't think we have it right, we make those changes. And I think, people see those actions. The other thing is that we spend a lot of time working with our partners and leaders as a firm because, one or two people can really affect the culture of the firm. So when Jim talks about relatively jerk-free, there's jerks that we've had before, and if they're continue to be a jerk, we don't want them around long-term because they're not living the true culture that we want to provide staff on a day-to-day basis. So it's, getting that buy-in from all of our partners and really talking about it, in our intro core trainings when we hire people from day one. And so really it's kind of a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach to look at our culture. And that's why, one of the reasons, just even looking at, bringing in lateral admit partners, we just don't do that a lot because our culture is so important. And we want to make sure that all of our partners are really bought into our culture because it means so much to us.
That's great. Thank you both. There were several questions around team partner, this idea that you developed at the beginning of the webinar, and we will definitely follow up with more insights from your team. But what is one thing that you would love to share in terms of questions around, are they part of the HR team or are they just line managers, frontline managers? How did this concept of team manager came to be?
Jim might have the history on how the team partner system was developed. Ever since I started with the firm, we had the team partner system in practice. And really, it's a partner of the firm. That's a practice partner. It's not, we looked at it as not an HR role. It's something that we all have to do as partners to make sure that we are providing those right opportunities for our team and helping them succeed and grow as well. So we looked at it as up to all of us as partners to see our teams grow.
Ceci, I'm not sure when it was put in place. It was before my time with the firm, but it's a wonderful process that we have, and it really helps people not only develop, but it entrenches them into the firm because you get to know them. And so it's really been kind of a secret weapon that we have as a firm. Works really well.
Thank you. We'll definitely share more insights on follow-up. Another question that I have for you is around employee satisfaction. There were a couple of questions around what do you do to assess your employee engagement, satisfaction, to understand whether or not your culture is actually great. So this was asked for a couple of people here, so love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. So one, at the firm level, obviously we participate in the Great Place to Work survey, which gives us tremendous insight in terms of how people are feeling, what they like, what they don't like about the firm. But equally as important to those survey results, team partners spend time with people, with their teams, to help to help the partner understand what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, what's being successfully done at the firm, what do you like, what don't you like, and really entrenching those people in the firm. So we get a ton of feedback from people from right when they start with the firm in terms of what's going well, what's not going well, what can we look to improve on. And so we get that really through those two processes. I'll say the overall just day-to-day interactions that team partners have with their teams, as well as some of the survey results that we get from the Great Place to Work.
See, the only other thing I was thinking about, Jim, is one of the things that we do is we give upward feedback as well. So as a team partner, we get upward feedback from our staff, things that we're doing well. We also have an upward feedback system for our partners. We call it our PUM evaluations. So Jim would be getting evaluated from, potentially all 400 of our partners as well to get that feedback. So, I mean, again, we look at it as it's a way for us all to continue to grow and do better. With people in a people business, you have to continue to grow and listen and get better and change your approach based on who you're trying to lead.
I love that, Jason and Jim. Thank you so much, because I believe that, like you both said, listening is key. You've also talked a lot about leadership, and it takes great leadership to build great cultures, like you shared during the whole session. So we want to thank you very much. We know that there are a couple more questions that we will for sure follow up. We've captured them, so believe me that we will definitely share those questions with the team at Plante Moran, and we'll get back to you on those. And before we finish, I want to make sure that we go back to where we started. So this is Plante Moran. For those of you who are asking, what do you do? 96% of your employees say that you're a great place to work. No wonder, right? After all the great insights that we heard today, it actually makes sense. So this is why you're here and you're part of this. Now, if you want to learn more around leadership and how to guide your leaders, we also welcome you to not only look at Plante Moran's profile and all the great things that they do. There's more content there. So if you go with your phone on your and screen that copy that QR code, you will get access to our research. In this time, we'll share research around transparent communication and how it's critical. Both Jason and Jim talked about this during today's session. There are many more insights on the website, but we thought this would be something that would connect right to what we heard today. And for all of you who want to guide your leaders to greatness, So those of you who already work with us at Great Place to Work, if you want to challenge your leaders and looking to your data and what changes you can make in your company, speak to your culture coach like Elliot and his team, or your customer success manager about these topics. Or you can also download your report on how to navigate the most common obstacles for HR. So again, take a look at that QR code, screen it, and you'll be able to learn more. And if you're not a customer yet, but you would love to get more insights and work with your leaders on modeling values and behaviors in your company, please feel free to do that. The QR code on the screen will take you to a contact with our team. Last but not least, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you so much, Jason, Jim, Elliot, and all the team behind the scenes that made this possible. Thank you for joining the Journey to Great webinar series. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, and please remember to complete the 4-question survey that will pop up at the end so that we can hear on how we can make this always better for you. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week, and we'll be sharing this recording in the next 24 hours. Bye, everyone.